Well, this week, Boris Johnson will be looking at just how soon England might be able to exit its current COVID-19 lockdown. And all of that comes as the first quarantine hotels have opened in the UK. And to tell us a bit more about that, let's go live to Bénédicte Paviot in London. Bénédicte, what more can you tell us?
Well, this is a very significant day. On the one hand, you've got the great success of the vaccine campaign with over 15 million people vaccinated. But on the other hand, what some critics are saying is a very late implementation and launch of a completely new quarantine policy, a very tough one. So it has come into force today. The first guests, I understand, have now checked into England's quarantine hotels. So far, the government has pre-selected 16 hotels that have signed up to take part in this. Of course, all kinds of things like cleaning, provision of food, surveillance as well. So it's a total of 4,963 rooms that have been selected, with a further 58,000 rooms on standby, we understand. And that is for people who are flying into England, trying to fly into England, from a list of 33 countries including Portugal, South Africa and Brazil. And as far as the last two I just mentioned, you'll notice we know that there are, of course, variants that have been identified coming from Brazil and South Africa. So it is to lower the number of infections and stop people who are possibly infected or who might not know that they're infected. They have to have a PCR test. They must not lie. If you try and lie to the authorities as you come into one of 5 identified airports in England, amongst whom London Heathrow, Gatwick, London City Airport, Farnborough Airfield, you will risk a 10-year imprisonment and a very significant fine. So I understand very few people have come in for the moment and that are in those hotels. But one of the concerns was the long queues in the airports and where people could actually get infected as they queue. I understand now people are being put in separate queues if they do come from those 33 red-listed countries.
Now, Bénédicte, of course, this comes off the back of what seems to be a vaccine success, at least in regard to the rollout. Almost 1 in 4 people have gotten the first jab. Do we know more about when they'll get the second jab?
Well, we know that the British policy has moved several weeks ago to a 12-week delay between the first and the second. So what the government is now concentrating on is it's vaccinated the majority of people in the first 4 top priority groups that include people over their 80s and over their 70s. Today, what is being opened up is to people who are carers and also to people who are over 65. But of course, there are some people, I should say unpaid carers, but there are some people, of course, who haven't yet had the jab. That's not a huge minority, but they are seen as people who, in those first 4 groups, as difficult to reach. So that is very much something that is uppermost in the government's mind. Significant that it is 15 million people. The Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, has said how proud he is of it, that it's an extraordinary feat. They're setting themselves huge targets to continue that. They want all the adult population, including, of course, vulnerable people, to have been vaccinated by the end of April or in May. So a lot of talk, as you mentioned in your introduction, about the lifting then of restrictions. We're in confinement still here in England. And remember, the death toll is the highest in Europe here. It's over 117,000 people who have died from coronavirus. A very sad and worrying figure.
Bénédicte, thank you for that. Bénédicte Paviot there reporting for us from London.